So, welcome to another episode of English Podcasts where we unravel the secrets of mastering English. I'm your host, Chris, and today we've got a gem of a subject: how to speak directly in English without translating. The problem faced by a lot of learners is that they often translate into their own language when speaking English, which is a big barrier to fluency, fluidity, and to actually progressing in a language. If you think about it, sometimes when you speak in English, you feel really tired. Well, it's not a surprise if you translate, as you're trying to accomplish at least 2 or 3 things at a time. Translating into your own language, then translating it back into English, which causes a problem due to response time, accuracy of your responses, and also most languages differ grammatically from English, which leaves it open to many mistakes. Let's see what you can do if you don't translate. Stick around because I've got 10 fantastic tips coming up your way, so let's dive right in. So tip number 1 is shifting your mindset. Now, the first step is all about mindset. So instead of translating from your native language to English, make the switch to thinking directly in English. I know it sounds easy to do, but it's like rewiring your brain for fluency. Practice describing your thoughts and surroundings in English throughout the day to get into the groove. When you're sat outside, what do you see? Trees, people, cars, animals, whatever. Think about all of this and actually speak it out loud in English. Now, you don't want people to think you're mad, but just do these simple things. You could even change the language of your phone and your GPS to English. Basically, it's about trying to force ways of speaking English and actually thinking about what's going on around you in English. Tip number 2 is vocabulary expansion. Now, we need to expand your vocabulary. The more words you have at your disposal, the easier it is to express yourself. Make a habit of learning a couple of new words every day, 1 or 2 or 3, and soon you'll find that your conversational toolbox is growing. But do not learn words alone, as you'll find it difficult to put them into a flowing sentence when needed. Let's have a look at a better way with tip number 3. So tip number 3 is learn phrases and expressions, not just words. We focus on phrases, not just individual words. Learn common expressions and idioms within their context. This helps you to use them naturally in conversations without the need for translation. Think about expressions you use in your own language regularly and try to find and practice the English equivalent, if it exists. For example, at the moment it's raining cats and dogs outside. As I'm recording this, it feels more like it should be a duvet day than a working day. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is active listening. Become an active listener. Tune your ear to the rhythm and intonation of native speakers. Podcasts, movies, everyday conversations are gold mines for picking up the nuances of spoken English. It's like learning the language from the inside out. Try to follow the rhythm of a conversation without trying to understand all that is said. There are things such as emotions. People are happy, sad, excited, maybe over the moon at stuff. And the intonation of questions, which don't always start with a question word, but probably have a rising intonation, don't they? Embrace mistakes. Now, the problem is that very often in school, mistakes are not a good thing because you lose marks with them and you get red marks all over your copy. Tip 5 is a game changer. We need to embrace these mistakes. Making errors is part of the learning process. Don't worry about making errors. We need to learn from them. Basically, if you're not making errors or mistakes, you're just not learning anything. So mistakes are good for you. You will find that there is a process in language learning. Firstly, you are not aware of the mistakes you make. Secondly, you can recognize that you're making mistakes, let's say with grammar, without necessarily knowing how to correct them. Then you will make a slip and know how to correct it. Language learning is a process, and I might add, it's a long process, and we need to engage with it. Sometimes you make mistakes, most of the times you learn. Tip number 6 is using a mirror for pronunciation. So it's a practical one. Grab a mirror. Pronunciation is key to speaking directly without translating. Practice in front of a mirror to improve your pronunciation and make those words flow effortlessly. You will feel that you're using different facial muscles than in your own language. And do write down words that are tricky. I'm thinking here of the OUGH in particular in English, which has 9 different ways of pronunciation. Enough, through, thought, example. And if we take the example of the word cough, COUGH, is pronounced like KOF, cough. Write them down as you hear them, and then it will be much easier for you to retrieve that and speak fluidly with it. Tip number 7 is about contextual learning. It's about immersing yourself in context. Understand when and how certain words and phrases are used. Contextual learning is a powerful tool for speaking with precision. Try to watch videos, films, or series in English without subtitles. Now, this is a big challenge. Try to follow the action or the story and pick up on some of the functions. For example, what do people want to do with the language? There are things such as greetings, goodbyes, thanking, asking questions, etc. in the context of the video. Try and look at these, and not to understand everything, but look at the way they're said. Number 8 is about using mnemonic devices for vocabulary learning. It involves some memory tricks. Mnemonics, they're called. It starts with an M, so it's mnemonics devices. Create associations or stories to remember new words. It not only helps with retention, but also makes recalling them in conversation much smoother and easier. Basically, any memory tricks that you can use to your advantage is always going to be a winner. Tip number 9 is about role play and conversational exercises. It's all about hands-on practice. Engage in role play scenarios or conversational exercises. It's like a language boot camp for your brain, preparing you for real-life interactions. You could watch or listen to interviews, for example, and answer the questions asked. You could also interact with others on a Facebook page or a group, but don't be a lurker, waiting for people to come to you. Make the first move. Try and start a conversation. It could pay off a lot when you start speaking to others. Tip number 10 is consistent conversational practice. And finally, this is key. Engage in regular conversations as much as you can, whether with native speakers or in a language exchange with partners, or even talking to yourself. Now, a lot of people will say there's no point speaking, for example, I'm in France, French speakers will say there's no point speaking with French learners because they make the same mistakes as me. Well, in fact, therein lies a big advantage because you make the mistakes, but you may not hear them. However, when you hear others, you can hear their mistakes, and so you can help them and yourself to correct them. And the more you practice, the more confident you'll become. There's bound to be a group for this on Facebook or elsewhere on language learning forums. There could be an intonations group or a meetup group in your town or city. Try to go to face-to-face meetups. Basically, the more you can use the language you learn, the better it is for you. Because if you're just learning without using it, all you're doing is you're building up passive knowledge, which is very, very difficult to get out. And you'll find yourself in situations, if this is the case, where you know what's being said, but you don't have the time to actually get the words out yourself because you're not used to it. So there you have it. 10 tips to help you speak English directly without the need for translation. If you found these tips helpful, be sure to share this episode with other language learners, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, and enjoy learning. But if you have any others that you could add to this to help people to be able to speak more fluidly without translating, then please give them in the comments below or on our Facebook page. Until next time, keep speaking, keep learning, and keep enjoying learning English. Bye-bye.